Detox nowadays, it used to be one of those things that was like an elective, like, oh, maybe I'll try it out. I have a friend who tried it type of thing. Or nowadays it's much more mainstream. In fact, it's not just mainstream, I would argue absolute necessity, especially as people, as us who live in Camarillo. We're going to talk about toxins today and where they come from. And one of the major toxins right under our nose is more prevalent in Camarillo than most places. So I tell this stuff to my mother-in-law, who loves to roll her eyes at me. She always rolls her eyes and says, I don't know how we ever survived this long, Aaron, is what she says. Because remember, to her, I'm Aaron. I'm not Dr. Bates. And it's not that we've changed so much. It's that our environment has changed, especially in the last 20 years, substantially. And my daughter, who's 6 now, will be exposed to more toxins than her grandmother ever was in her entire life. So the game has changed. The playing field has changed, and so we have to change. And I'm going to share some statistics, which I feel like nowadays people are a bit numb to statistics. We see so many of them, and we see numbers in the millions and the billions. It doesn't even mean anything, but just to give you a little background of what brought me into the world of detox, I myself, first of all, went through a process of healing. My background and my story is not a story that's really overwhelming, but it's my story, and it's something that's definitely relevant to what we're about to talk about. So it all begins when I was in high school. My very first symptom of toxicity actually came in the form of snoring. So I was in high school and I started snoring. I just figured that's what happens when you get older. As I went into college, my snoring went from constant congestion. My ears were always plugged up. I used to think it was because around that time, I would literally snowboard and surf in the same day. So between the water and the altitude changes, I just thought that it was normal to have your ears congested all the time and itching. It wasn't until chiropractic school, pretty much flattened out. I had snoring and always congested, never went away. I just thought that was normal. Then I went to practice in Palo Alto for a couple years and back home in Manhattan Beach for a couple years. Pretty much plateaued, but then I moved to Camarillo and everything changed. And remember, Camarillo is not far from where I grew up, 45 minutes away. So then I started getting really bad allergies. I went to my doctor who, I said my doctor, he was like, the first time I ever met the doctor, first time I've ever been to the doctor, first time I've been there since, and she literally slapped me in the back of the head and was like, dude, you have allergies. And I'm like, what are allergies, And then I did a lot of conservative, you can call it holistic, non-allopathic forms of treatment for allergies, which worked decently. But over time, it just seemed to get worse. I started having major issues of fatigue. My dry scalp got so bad. It was coming out in chunks. My hair got super thin within a 6-month period. And I started getting anxiety, I started getting insomnia, all these different issues. And I thought it was, okay, something to do with the allergies, maybe I'm allergic to this. I started thinking I was allergic to this food, and it drives you nuts. You're thinking all these different things are going on. Oh, now I can't eat potatoes. Oh, now I can't, go out on a sunny day in March. And over time, you just become allergic to your environment is what it felt like. Like I was no longer normal in my environment. So it is through this pain that over time I developed a lot of the information that I came across. And it wasn't until the last year and a half where really big positive changes happened for me. And so that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. Moving on. So these are some of the statistics. That's my story. Just so you know, I don't snore anymore. I get some dry scalp every once in a while, but not too bad, really, at all. And my energy levels are phenomenal. So here's what I did. First of all, some statistics. So what it says here is, here we go, because you haven't seen it already. If the present scale of growth continues apace, by 2032, 1 out of every 2 children in the United States will be on the autism spectrum. We've already acknowledged that autism is an issue that has been created through environmental toxicity. So that's 80% of boys, by the way. Diabetes as an epidemic, 1 in every 3 children born after the year 2000 will have diabetes in his or her lifetime. What does diabetes have to do with toxicity? We actually talked about this last month on nutrition and diabetes. Well, we're going to learn today how toxicity will actually predispose you. And just to give you an idea here, they did a really cool research, randomized controlled trial on twin mice at the University of Duke. And what they did was they separated these twins and they compared twins that one side was eating good healthy diet and exercising, other side good healthy diet and exercising. The only thing they changed in these two studies was one was exposed to BPA, which is a commonly known toxin. And over time, these mice began to develop skin problems, their fur changed colors, and over time they also began to gain weight. Same diet, same exercise. And what the only difference was, and furthermore, it affected their children too, for the next 4 generations. But by the 4th generation, all of a sudden, the next group of mice actually no longer had all the symptoms. The BPA had worked out of the system. So when they talk about genetics, and they talk about how toxins affect our genetics, which is called epigenetics, how our environment affects our genetic expression. So we can actually affect our genetic expression through our environment. So diabetes is absolutely plays a role there. 75% of American adults over the age of 40 have been diagnosed with at least one chronic disease. What's the common symptom or finding of chronic disease? Anybody know? It's in every single chronic disease.
Pain?
No, not always. What was that?
Inflammation?
Fatigue, inflammation. They all have inflammation. Remember that. So again, these are like these statistics, less than a minute now. Statistically, one person will die of cancer every 54 seconds. It's like we've kind of become, again, numb to that because it's not really maybe relevant to us unless we've had somebody in our family who's had these type of issues, these diseases. So from womb to tomb. So these things are happening and being expressed through our genes, through our lineages. What we found was the Environmental Working Group examined the cord blood of newborns and found that out of the 413 chemicals that were looked for, just ones they were looking for, that they found as many as 287, right? And these are brand new newborns. An average of 200 toxins, and 180 of them actually are known carcinogens. So already. Cancer rates in children have risen by 67% since 1950. And what's changed? Well, we've put in so much money in the research. We've put in so much money in the treatment. We're doing everything we can. But the only thing that's changed really is our environment around us. And we've already acknowledged, we know 90% of cancer is caused by diet and environment, your epigenetics, your body's genetic expression based on the environment around it. So what is the cause? Well, one of the big ones is toxins. So we're going to talk about some of the main toxins here. There are 3 main toxins that we're going to go over today, and then 3 main heavy metal toxins, and then 2 others that I believe are, or one other one that I believe is really the major one in Camarillo that is affecting us more so than any other. So the first one is lead. And most people think of lead and I thought we got rid of lead, right? I mean, didn't we get rid of lead paint? Didn't we get rid of lead gasoline? Well, we got rid of all this stuff already. Well, the truth is there's still a lot of lead exposure, and I'll show you where. But lead affects us in 2 ways, through 4 generations, by the way, from mom to child to child to child. It's still in us. If we had one family member within 4 generations, then we quite possibly have lead exposure. So in utero from baby to mom, and also changing the way your genetic expression, which can lead to many different types of diseases. So it hides in your bone. That's where it happens. This study, Journal of Environmental Health, found women between the ages of 65 to 87 with high lead levels were nearly 60% more likely to die during the 12-year study. So in other words, if you were, or the reason why this happens is because during those ages, 65 to 87, we start to lose more bone. And if our lead is in the bone and we're releasing it, then it's going to be spread in other areas of our body, namely the liver, the kidneys, and the heart, and the brain, creating other issues. So as people age, their bones release stored lead, leading to heart disease, high blood pressure, strokes, and weight gain. Medics, 20 out of 33 different lipsticks that were observed.
Really?
It's in our water. So we've seen all the craziness that happened in Flint, Pennsylvania, and most recently in California. It's still a problem. And it's a heavy metal. Heavy metals, once they're in your body, are very hard to get out. Well, let's talk mercury, another heavy metal. Did you know that mercury, in the form of thimerosal, or like an ethyl mercury, was actually in our lens cleaner for our contacts? People are squirting it right into their eyes.
Oh my goodness.
Right? Right into their brain. Now that's not around anymore. That was in the 90s. However, there's a couple areas that would really surprise you where the lead's getting us. How about silver fillings? Did you know that's 50% mercury?
Well, I didn't know it was that much, but
Yeah.
it's bad.
Main source of mercury vapor is dental amalgams. Okay, so you take, we'll get into it in a sec, but amalgams contribute substantially to mercury overload in the human tissues. A study presented in FASAB indicates that the more amalgam fillings present in your mouth, the more mercury you will have in your organs, including the brain, kidneys, heart, and liver. I know that's a correlation, right? So it's a pattern. We got to be aware of a lot of these patterns because some of this stuff is, with toxins, it's really hard to get a specific, a direct causation. But I'm all for following patterns, and if those patterns make sense to me, then I'm going to be more wary, of course. So get this. When we take this stuff, perfect, we got the picture right there, the skull and crossbones stuff, and it's actually not inside our mouth. It's on the dentist table. It's considered a class 3 hazardous waste. When it's put into your mouth, it changes to acceptable. What changed? Nothing, except for the political acceptance of what's normal and what's not normal. Once you take it out, because people get silver fillings taken out, it goes back to hazardous waste. And OSHA has certain mandates, which all these mandates right here, which explain exactly how you need to handle this toxin. But in your mouth, it's perfectly okay. Well, it's not. It's leaching mercury. And your mouths are fairly acidic, which means you're going to leach mercury more so than when it's outside. And also, when you drink like hot liquids, it's more likely to leach as well, create more vapor. So that nice, healthy, hot tea, not so healthy when you have silver fillings, right? Is this kind of mind-blowing? It's crazy, right? So if you would like to take a look at it online, this is a video where they use these thermal cameras that they do on like submarines, and you can actually see the vapor coming off the silver filling. It's pretty nasty stuff. It's illegal in most countries, not in America. And we know why. I mean, just like a lot of these, we are, we're so concerned about liability. If the ADA comes out and agrees, and our politicians say, yes, this is not a good thing, then there's a backlash. People are going to say, well, what the heck? You told us for decades that it was safe. Is this why I have all these symptoms? Look at mercury symptoms. Depression, mild fatigue, anxiety, forgetfulness, the muscle twitching of the eye, digestive issues, constipation and diarrhea, frequent bad breath, constant body odor, dizziness, irritability, sensitivity to sound, inability to concentrate, brain fog, very common in our society now, abnormal menses, low body temperature, cold hands and feet, tender teeth, tinnitus, so ringing in the ears, insomnia, metallic taste in the mouth, nail fungus, unexplained anger, and autoimmune response. Dentists are most at risk, actually. They're the ones saying it's okay, and they're the ones who are suffering the most. They're not all saying that, by the way. Some are very savvy and very up-to-date, but some are still living in the same, doing the same type of practice they did 20 years ago. Higher levels, here's the ones that I find interesting. The correlation of number of fillings per day and the prevalence of neuropsychological muscular disorders. So in other words, the more work that they do, the sicker they're getting. That's called a correlation, right? Maybe not a causation, but that's pretty good for me. Compared to GPs, dentists had significantly more memory deficit, anxiety, moodiness, insomnia, depression, chronic fatigue, and but compared to chiropractors, everybody looks sick because we're like health nuts. The study also brought to question the threshold limits. So where else? So all these heavy metals are leading to issues of dementia. Dementia is a big concern, and we're worried about our kids, but here we are grown adults, and this is what we really got to worry about are these neurodisorders, neurodegenerative disorders like dementia and Alzheimer's. Do you know the nickname we have for Alzheimer's? Have you ever heard it called type 3 diabetes? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's now striking people as early as 40. Where's a lot of the mercury coming from? It's the big one right here is the flu shot.
No kidding.
Hugh Fudenberg is one of the biggest guys in the world of immunology, one of the most quoted guys, one of the most written scientists there is. Here's what he said. If an individual has had 5 consecutive flu shots between 1970 and 1980, the years of the study, his or her chance of developing Alzheimer's disease is tenfold than if they had 1, 2, or none. So they still could have 1, but if they had 5, 10 times because of the bioaccumulation. He says, where is it? When asked, it's because of the gradual mercury and aluminum buildup. Aluminum? I thought aluminum was safe. Now, why do we use mercury and aluminum in these vaccines? Well, they're adjuvants. They're designed to shock the immune system. And the way, once we shock it, then the immune system responds, and then theoretically, our immune system becomes stronger, and that's the theory behind vaccines, right? So, and one thing about vaccines, I would say, out of allopathic medicine, it's the only thing that philosophically is somewhat on track of health, because at least it's trying to do something proactive to make you healthier, right? As opposed to what real allopath treatment is for crisis. If you have crisis, if you have an emergency or a trauma, and the place you want to be is right here in America. We got the best. When we try to use that same system to expand health and wellness, it doesn't work so well. So and the scary thing about dementia and Alzheimer's, there's no cure or prevention. The drug companies are pushing away. Johnson & Johnson just recently pulled out with their experimental drug, blah, 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 after the failure of 2 high-profile clinical trials. So this stuff, the neurodegenerative stuff is the scariest stuff, and where's the correlation? It's toxins. So fastest growing diseases, dementia and Alzheimer's. And first sign, short-term memory loss, brain fog, now called pre-dementia. What about other vaccines? Well, again, in theory, vaccines are great things. They've done great things for our community and our society historically. The problem is there are some correlations here that we have to pay attention to so we can properly manage and just be safe. Well, just like any drug, we don't want to overdose a drug, just like water. Too much of it can actually be toxic, right? Mm-hmm. So interesting, autism was discovered in 1943, 12 years after ethylmercury was added to the pertussis vaccine. 30 years ago, I remember being at my pediatrician's office, and my dad was doing a lot of reading on vaccine even back then, and he asked the doctor, I'm a little skeptical on vaccine, and the doctor just flat out said, well, I can understand if you're afraid of the pertussis vaccine. This was 30 years ago. They're already saying I could understand. But then he said, if you don't vaccinate, get out of my office after that. So anyway, that's kind of it's an interesting world of vaccine, highly political, a lot of, it's an interesting topic. But another thing where we're actually seeing a lot of correlation of vaccine and encephalitis. The idea is there's some risks there. And the problem is because of these adjuvants, these heavy metals, aluminum, the allowable levels according to the FDA for an infant should not exceed more than 30 micrograms in a 24-hour period of aluminum. Well, within 12 hours, we get our hepatitis B vaccine. That's 250 micrograms right there. Within 2 months, we're going to get 5 to 8 more shots. That's 1,200 to 2,000 micrograms. A lot of the vaccine schedule is not based on safety or efficacy, but on convenience. And that can be a little dangerous. I think we got to be careful, especially with toxins. The blood-brain barrier of a child is not developed yet. Where are those toxins freely exposed to? Their GI and their brain. So it's 100 times more than what's considered safe. And you know what? Out of the two things that I would say have changed the most, one is vaccine, because as you might have noticed, vaccines have tripled just in the last 20 years. But the other one you probably never even heard of. This chemical was invented about 25 years ago. This chemical was first patented as a chelating agent. So what it did was it stripped metal off pipes.
Oh.
Kind of like with the stuff they use to decaffeinate coffee. You're not supposed to drink decaf because it's super toxic. Did you know that? Yeah? Okay.
No.
Then it was patented later as an antimicrobial. And the antimicrobial purposes, it kills bugs, right? Then it was patented as a herbicide. It's the most prevalent herbicide in our country. Of course, it's illegal in many other countries, but in our country, totally legal. It's called glyphosate. Who here has heard of glyphosate? One person. Okay. First of all, as a chelating agent, so as it's exposed to your body, it actually, any heavy metals in your body, it allows it to burrow deeper. It's also what do we say, an antimicrobial. So when ingested, it completely destroys your intestinal flora. Leaky gut syndrome. I mean, how often you hear people have gluten intolerances? Has gluten really changed that much in 20 years? Come on. Our GIs are getting totally destroyed, leading to things like, in the older population, Crohn's and diverticulitis. I must get one person in a week who says, oh, doctor diagnosed me with diverticulitis. It used to be Crohn's, and now I feel like diverticulitis is the hip one. But these are all inflammatory autoimmune disorders. So where does this come from? Oh, but it's an herbicide, so it's been patented to kill weeds in our farmland, right? Just like an antibiotic, it kills something living. And it worked. The problem was, over the last 15 years, what happened with antibiotics over the last 40 years? Did they get more effective or less effective? Less effective, right? So the bugs are getting stronger. We're getting these super bugs. Well, the same thing's happening in the farming world. We're getting super weeds.
Really?
Yeah. And so over the last 15 years, they've had to, instead of getting more clever, like let's modify this, change something, what they've done is they just increased the amount of glyphosate. We've increased 800 times the amount that we did when it was first invented. 800. This is one of the biggest changes in the toxin world, and we're right here in the middle of it in Camarillo. The northwest prevailing wind used to be my favorite wind. It was like fresh ocean air where I grew up. But what it brings to us is an herbicide drift, pesticides right under our nose. And it's destroying our GI, creating autoimmune, enhancing the effects of heavy metals, including issues with the vaccines. So it makes mercury and aluminum more toxic, and the scariest thing, it's everywhere. Everywhere. We've got so we're using 800 times more glyphosate, so what happens to the plant? The plant can't handle 800% more glyphosate, so what it does is it dies, because it's a plant killer. So what did we do as scientists? We genetically modified the organism so that it can withstand. This is why we created GMO. Did you know that? So it could withstand the most commonly used herbicide in our country, Roundup. Have you heard of Roundup?
Yeah.
It's Roundup, right? So it's in our GMO corn and soy, in our canola, canola is a really cheap oil that's used to cook our number one vegetable that we eat in America, potatoes. We eat a lot of potatoes, not in the form of like, a baked potato, but like chips and French fries, right? We desiccate potatoes. So the potatoes are not genetically modified, and neither is wheat, but they desiccate it with Roundup. So what that means is they dry it up. So right at harvest, it allows it to harvest more readily and easily. And because that happens, we make more money because our margins are better because it took less work to harvest the plant, harvest the crop, right? So it's everywhere. Last time they checked the rainwater, 60% of our rainwater has glyphosate in it. It's everywhere. Scary, right? We're giving it to our children as alternatives. We're not breastfeeding. But we're giving them this protein isolate, soy-based, genetically modified formula. We're giving it to our seniors. This is,
Sure?
yeah.
What about glucemia?
I don't know. I'm sure it's just as bad.
Oh, because that's
Yeah.
supposed to be for like diabetics.
I don't know specifically.
Should I bring in a bottle?
Yeah, we could compare it to this. I bet it looks pretty similar.
Oh, I don't know.
So the idea is for our buckets of toxicity, if we are 60 trillion cells, human cells, and each one is like a bucket that can handle a certain amount of toxicity, eventually that bucket's going to overfill before our life ends because we're so inundated with toxins. Some of us, it will take 10 years, our kids 10 years, and they already have all these issues of asthma or autoimmune, whatever it is. Or it'll take us 50 years. And all of a sudden we turn 52, and all of a sudden we're having all these issues of global inflammation. We're in so much achy pain, it's everywhere. Right? Or we have diverticulitis we've been diagnosed with. So the inflammation, and the reason why my only issue with allopathic medicine, which saves lives, is that it never dumps the bucket. Have you ever missed the garbage man before? You forgot to take out your garbage can? Aren't you so bummed? You're like, ugh, gotta wait another week. Have you ever missed your recycle bin? They only come twice a month, right? So when that thing fills up, it attracts some stench, odor, and bugs, flies, right? Does it make sense? We've all seen it.
I wash mine.
Well,
The recycling stuff. I do.
I call that a detox. Looks good. So the way that allopath medicine is designed is to kill the bugs and the odor as the garbage builds more. No lifestyle changes has happened. We have to empty the buckets. Do you see where I'm going with that? You can't see all this stuff, but it's just a bunch of symptoms. Inflammation, stuff like that, weight gain. And let's see where we're at. So just to reiterate before I explain how this is happening and what we do, the three evil amigos, you got your metals. We did not tackle molds, but mold, the reason why I don't tackle it is because mold has not changed that much in thousands of years. That's not the big change, right? I mean, everybody knows you don't want a wet house because then it'll eat the bugs will eat the cellulose, grow, and get all the biotoxins and stuff like that. Hidden infections, though, like Lyme disease, this has become so prevalent. And I should say the diagnosis has become so prevalent. And I'm not totally convinced that all of a sudden here, us in Southern California are being totally exposed to Lyme disease, and more it's an inflammatory issue, yeah.
My son just got confirmed he had the Lyme.
Yeah.
He got this antibiotic in that
Target sign.
There's a kind of blue-eyes rash.
Yeah, the bullseye sign. Yeah. What I'm getting at is it's, and I'm sorry to hear that. That's
Yeah,
not
but
right.
I figure out something else that could help him.
So my concern about Lyme is it's just being diagnosed very readily, and it's just advanced so much in the last 10 years. Root canals, cavitations, a lot of dental work, 60% inside, that's two 60% statistics I given tonight, so now it kind of sounds like I'm losing like I'm just making this stuff up. But no, 60% of all disease is said to start in the mouth, right? Remember that. But it's these things are being magnified by glyphosate, is my honest opinion. And just,
What's the alternative for if you need a root canal?
yeah, that's a much more, and that's way beyond my limited knowledge on this stuff. My job is to open the eyes, and then you can go on the detailed journeys that you want to go. Yeah. Okay, so here's what happens. Do you remember when we talked about insulin last month? Who here was last month? Okay, so when our bodies, we consume more sugar, we take the sugar from our blood and move it into the cells using a hormone. Does anybody remember what that hormone is called? No, close. I mean, that's a hormone. Insulin. Yeah, insulin, right? I know everybody's, oh, come on, I knew that. It's insulin, right? So sugar comes in, insulin lands on this receptor on the cell. Here's the cell membrane. And then it'll open up a protein and allow the sugar to come in, right? So that's when there's high sugar. The problem is we eat too much sugar. Sugar is highly inflammatory, which we learned last time. And that starts to create inflammation around the receptors. It literally blunts them. And so they don't readily receive the insulin. So what does your body do? It produces more insulin. So you're becoming insulin resistant, right? And then over time, your body loses more sensitivity. So over time, the pancreas just simply becomes exhausted. There's your type 2 diabetes, right? Well, with toxins, does anybody know where toxins typically go to when there's toxins in our body wants to expel it or protect us from it? Where does it typically put it? In the fat. Yeah. What is a cell lipid bilayer made up of? Fat. That's all fat. Yeah. The outsides and the inside are made of fat. That's what keeps water out, so fat-soluble vitamins don't get in unless they get in through a protein. So we're going to use thyroid hormone as our example during this lecture. When your body uses T4, which is the thyroid hormone, converts to T3, which then goes into the cell and boosts up your metabolism, helps you lose weight, helps you have nice thick hair, nice skin, all those happy things, energy, right? But when you have chock full of toxins in the cell membrane, we have lots of, what's the most common correlation of chronic disease, common symptom sign? Inflammation. Then it blunts this receptor. So the thyroid receptor can no longer plant the way that it used to, and your body starts to get dry skin. You start to have gaining weight. You start to have fatigue issues, right? Those are all the things correlated with the thyroid hormone, T3. So we have this thyroid hormone here that can't connect here. So what's the allopathic answer to that? We're going to medicate you with...
Antibiotics?
No.
Anti-inflammatory?
No. What was it?
Metformin?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. How about Synthroid, or a thyroid hormone synthetic?
Oh.
Is that what you said?
Thyrazine.
You just made that one up. That's not even.
I use it.
Then you better listen up. So that's kind of like this. The same idea here is, have you ever driven a friend's car around town, and all of a sudden it's your first time driving it, they let you borrow it, and you need to get them gas, and you want to pay them back and borrow your car, and you go to fill up the gas tank, and you can't figure out how to open that tank. Have you ever done that? Or the new car you can't figure out how to open, you're looking for the button everywhere? Well, if you're out of gas and you can't get it in, can we just dump all the gas all over the car? Will it work?
Nope.
Well, it won't. It becomes a hazardous, dangerous explosion waiting to happen in real life. But when it comes to your cell, when we bombard the system with a bunch of synthetic hormone, it actually kind of works. Kind of like when our kids do something bad and you yell at them. Remember? We talked about this last time. And then they stop listening the next time. You yell at them again, they don't really respond. They're becoming parental resistant, right? Or discipline resistant. So we've got to get to, oh, and by the way, the good stuff can't get in, but the bad stuff can't get out either. Because your body, your cells are essentially like factories. They're producing energy. All 60 trillion cells in your body. Well, all factories create byproducts. They create things that need to be eliminated. And your body naturally can eliminate waste very well. We detox well. But not when we're chock full of toxins and inflammation. So now we have this fire on in our house and we've got no chimney. And the smoke is all building up on the inside. You see where I'm going with that? So, what do? Here's our action steps. Let me show you what's not working so well. Well, the research is out. I've been telling you for years chlorella is a good heavy metal detoxer. I've been saying that for years if you've ever been to my nutrition lecture. The latest research shows it's not binding very well. So, and I'll be honest with you, I take chlorella because of the principle, because of all the nutrients that it has, and the theory that it was a heavy metal detoxifier, and I will continue to take chlorella. However, it's not having the major effect. Some of the things that I'm going to show you tonight, it had a major effect. I felt it. It made an impact in my life. A lot of the herbal stuff, citrus pectin and cilantro down here, these are the things that work more like street sweepers than actually binders. So I've never understood a street sweeper before. I see it going down the street and it's coming up to all these leaves and it just brushes the leaves kind of all over the place. I'm like, well, that didn't really do much. Like, what does the street sweeper really do, right? When something doesn't truly bind and get eliminated out of the body, a lot of times what happens is it'll grab that toxin, move it to somewhere else, and then drop it. So your headaches go away or your anxiety goes away, but now you got GI problems, that kind of thing, okay? Glutathione is a powerful endogenous antioxidant. And very hard to supplement glutathione. Typically, it's fairly expensive. It does detox the body, but it does not get to the brain. When we talk detox, we want to get all the way to the brain. That's where a lot of those, especially in kids who are being exposed to the heavy metal toxins.
Binder, not a true binder.
So I just think of a binder as something that grabs it and takes it out of the body.
So you say none of these work?
Yeah, I'm showing you the stuff that I don't want you to waste your time with.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, bad, okay.
Liquid zeolites, these are the things they use to clean like environmental waste, and it works really well. The problem is they can't make them small enough to get in the body, so people take these liquid zeolites and they're not really doing much at all. So here's some of my action steps for you. Now, some of this stuff is going to reduce inflammation just generally, and some of this stuff is actually going to grab toxicity out of your body. First of all, I want to talk about some of the nutritional components I think everybody should implement because this is free. You don't have to pay any money to do this stuff. Intermittent fasting. We talked about intermittent fasting is when you reduce the window of time in which you eat in a day. So in other words, the simple way of explaining intermittent fasting without getting too far into it is you skip breakfast because that keeps your GI system from turning on. And when your GI system is off, your body can focus on cleaning up the garage, so to speak, right? So a lot of detoxing, the body will naturally do it. This is if you don't have any like heavy metal toxicity or inflammation preventing your body from running those natural courses of detox. Limiting sugar because it's highly inflammatory. We talked about, I would definitely go back and watch that video that we did last month. And after that lecture, I had a lot of faces where people were just like, dude, that was too gnarly. That was totally opposite of what I've heard in the past. And anybody who's implemented it, it's helped them with big time on weight loss, big time on inflammation, which is going to help you with your chiropractic care. You guys know why I do these lectures, right? Because if you do these things, you get better results over here. And then you feel better, I look better. See how awesome that is? All right. Sweating and limiting hot showers. So this is for the detox in the biggest organ in your body, your skin. Great way to do it. My favorite way is I do Bikram yoga once a week. And I wouldn't do it once a week if I did not live in Camarillo. I just think it makes that big of an impact on my life of just cleansing all the allergens and the glyphosate. We're just inundated constantly. Some of you in here should not do Bikram yoga. Not yet. Bikram yoga is quite dangerous. I get a lot of new patients from Bikram yoga. What's that?
What kind of yoga?
It's hot yoga. So you could do a hot sauna. You could do a dry sauna, infrared sauna. People who tell me, "Well, I get a good sweat when I work out." No, you don't. You need to get a good sweat, dripping sweat, just fully soaked shirt type of sweat. And limit hot showers. You want to know what the best invention was that saved us from infection disease? Things like typhoid. Do we have a vaccine for typhoid? No, we don't. But it went away, didn't it? Do you know why? Because we cleaned the water. And we loaded it with chlorine, which saved us from dying from typhoid. But it's killing us slowly because it's a halogen, it's a toxin. So when you take a hot shower, it opens your pores, it goes right into your body. It's estimated that a 7-minute shower is like drinking a gallon of water, a gallon of that tap water. So, and this is awesome. I'll take kind of a hot shower when I wake up in the morning, but 90% of that time is a cold shower. Right? It wakes me up. Oh, I got some faces. It's awesome. And by the way, it boosts your metabolism. It steps up your immune system. Right? There's a lot of healthy things. So it steps up your detox system too. Right? You want to lose a couple extra pounds? Do nothing different but change your hot shower to a cold shower. I promise you. It's crazy. Okay, 60% of all disease starts where?
Mouth.
The mouth. So we got to keep our mouths clean. This was one of the things that made a big difference for me. I've talked about this many times. Oil pulling, very simple. Some people hate it. I don't mind it. I love it. You take a spoonful of coconut oil, put it in your mouth, swirl it around for 20 minutes, spit it out.
About olive oil, I heard about olive oil too.
Any oil works because safflower, before like coconut oil was all the rave, it was like safflower oil. Yeah, I mean, as long as it's an oil, it's gonna grab it. It's a soap, right? So fat turns into soap. I think you turn it into bombs too. But the idea is it's a great cleanser. Chlorella. I still recommend chlorella. That is so now we're talking about stuff that costs money. Coconut oil, it costs money, right? Chlorella, well, that's a daily supplement. It costs money. Glutathione is a really important intercellular detox supplement. Your body will make glutathione in very low inflammatory situations, but most of us have so much inflammation. Supplementing is a really good idea. I'll tell you a good place to get this. And the binder, activated charcoal. So one of my friends is a DO. She's really cool, like a very holistic DO. And she taught me that if somebody has the stomach flu or like the 24-hour bug and you're just throwing up, the best way to get rid of those biotoxins is to burn your toast and then eat the toast. It's all the charcoal soaks up the toxins. Well, you don't have to do that. They have this activated charcoal, and it's interestingly made from apparently the best type comes from coconut shells. So there you have it. And both these products, and this stuff is so awesome. I feel energy when I take glutathione. Not caffeine energy, but just like that, all right, we're good. I can go all day, energy. The charcoal, this is something that I feel the next day. So like the time I'll take charcoal now more proactively is it's Friday night and I had pizza. And when I eat the charcoal next day, I don't get the pizza. Do you know the pizza hangover? If you don't eat a lot of pizza, then you know about the pizza hangover. You feel groggy. You don't want to open your eyes the next day. I wake up and I'm like, I'm fine. Or a glass of wine. I take the charcoal. Anything you eat or consume within 2 hours, it's going to take right out of you and gone. It's pretty cool. Right? So these, the same place that I get the coffee that I told you about last month, Bulletproof. I also said Kamado Island, which I actually like better, but this guy has a couple really cool products. So you can get that on Amazon. Okay? A lot of this stuff, though, if you're toxic at a cellular level, will not get to the cell. And so last year what I discovered was a program called True Cellular Detox. And the reason why I like this program is because it encompasses a lot of those things, like the liquid zeolites, which they have a form that will actually reach all the way to your brain. Proven in the labs and worked great for me. Brain fog, gone. It gets to the cells beyond the colon, beyond the liver, a lot of the areas that people try to detox with like 10-day cleanses and stuff like that. This stuff goes upstream and gets to the cell. And the reason why I like this product as well is because all that nutritional stuff that I went over last month, they actually put you on a nutritional program while you do it. So I know I confused a lot of people on the principles last month and you wanted some do-level action steps. Well, this program actually puts it together for you. So you get a nutritional program as well as you get the supplementation. And relatively speaking, it is a great way to save a lot of money on future health bills down the road.
Where do you get this at? The program, you said it was a program.
Yeah, I'll explain that. So just to give you an idea, or just to give you a little heads up on what's going to be changing in the next month, actually in the next week at Bates Family Chiropractic, is I've taken on another doctor. So it's a really big thing. And this doctor is going to back me up chiropractically. But the real reason why I brought him on is because he's trained in functional medicine. That is his specialty. Anybody know what functional medicine is? Yeah? A couple people know. Functional medicine, just like your general doctor, looks at your blood labs. only they do much more extensive labs. And they look for your nutritional deficiencies, your toxicities. They diagnose you specifically based on your state of physiology, where you're off, and give you a regimen exactly specific to your needs. And you follow that regimen without taking any drugs. So it's kind of like the cream of the crop of dumping the trash, right? And if you're interested, after everything we just talked about today, if you're interested about what the best test is to see what your toxicity levels, there are these two tests right here. And this was the two tests that my doctor's name, Dr. Shah, really nice guy. One is the VCS, visual contrast test. So a similar test to what you do with your optometrist. However, we're not checking for 20/20 vision. This test is so specific, it can actually see if you have inflammation of your brain, whether it's coming from a biotoxin or a heavy metal toxin. It can narrow it down to the specific category. It's really cool. And the Medioxy, which this test for cellular inflammation. This test is 50 times more accurate than a blood test. And what it's measuring is it's right here, malondialdehyde, which is essentially what's left over after fat is oxidized, the fatty lipid bilayer of your cells. So it's checking for inflammation. Now, these tests right here, as Dr. Shah explained to me, he charges $300 for it. Yeah. But I told him, you're going to practice in my office, and I'm paying him to be in my office. Whenever he does these tests for any of my patients, he has to charge the cost, which is $100. $100. Okay.
What was that first one called? I can't read that.
VCS? VCS. Yeah. Yeah. He does a lot of different type of testing. This is just the one specific to detox. And this is not like a if you buy now situation. What this is as long as you're my patient and I have Dr. Shah employed in my office, you're going to have exposure to the most cutting edge healthcare there is. And that's what I'm proud of. And we can get you at least the detox protocols. He does a lot of stuff with thyroid dysfunction, a lot of stuff with GI disorders, very cool stuff. But for our purposes of what we're talking about tonight, that will always be available to you.